Welcome in to the First and Long College Football Show. I'm your co-host Marcus. Today we're going to be going over our Week 7 reactions. We had an action-packed Week 7 in college football. A lot of fun. Probably my favorite week of the year so far. Mason, there's your other co-host there. How you doing today, buddy? And how'd you enjoy that Week 7?
Man, I'm doing good. It was a good week. It's one of those weeks that some games kind of came up and got you, but for the most part, the good games did not disappoint. Highlighted,
Yeah.
of course, by Oregon and Washington. A heck of a game. I'm excited to talk about it with you. Wish we were together in person to watch them, but hey, it is what it is. Weekends get busy, so. But yeah, I'm excited to get into these and break them down, talk about what we saw and what it means for these teams moving forward.
Yeah, there was a lot going on. A lot of different angles to cover here, and we're going to do that together today. Some of our big games of the week last week were Oregon at Washington, obviously, and we'll probably go ahead and dive into that one first. Texas A&M at Tennessee, Auburn at LSU, USC at Notre Dame, Miami at North Carolina, Mizzou at Kentucky, and UCLA at Oregon State, among others. We're going to dive into the Colorado and Stanford game. Definitely want to touch on that one because there was definitely some history made by Coach Prime in that one and the Buffalo Boys. So let's kind of dive into this Oregon at Washington game. And this game, you talk about didn't disappoint, man. This was a really, really good game all the way through. Some, we'll talk about the winner of the game first. Michael Penix just solidified his spot in New York, I believe, barring, something crazy like an injury or something. But back and forth game. Washington comes down, scores at the very end on a couple plays. We're going to get into that, why it was a couple plays. Some questionable stuff, with Dan Lanning and his game calling, and I've heard a couple different angles on this, so we'll kind of get into that as well. But Michael Penix goes down, throws a touchdown. Oregon comes down the field, has like a minute left, something like that, and end up missing a field goal, and Washington wins 36-33, I believe is what the final was on that. Like I said, Michael Penix solidified his spot in the Heisman. I think one of the surprising parts of this game was how well Washington was able to run the ball. I don't think anybody really saw that coming. Did you know that Washington did not even have a 100-yard rusher in any one single game until this one this year? So I think we learned a little bit about both teams, and look, Washington is in it to win it, right? We saw USC struggle this week. Notre Dame absolutely just spanked them. So we saw the glaring issues that we saw earlier in the preseason even came to light for them. So I feel like the way is kind of cleared for Washington to make it to that Las Vegas spot in that Pac-12 championship game. And it definitely means that Michael Penix is going to be going to New York so long as he doesn't just choke it away the rest of the season, because that was the most Heisman moment of the year, the way he went down and him and Odunze hooked up the way that they did. So a lot of chemistry on that team, man, and that was a big game that they just won. So checking a lot of boxes for a lot of people now. And the Pac-12 is ultra competitive, though, man. So what did you think about this one? And what did you think about Bo Nix and the Oregon Ducks? I didn't really talk about the loser of this game, but in all honesty, there wasn't, I don't think, necessarily a loser. Oregon just kind of loses their ability to have a buffer, for a bad game somewhere down the road. So I don't think that anybody's holding anything against Oregon for losing this game on the road.
Yeah, I agree. And you watch this game. unfold, and I hope that you did get a chance to watch it because it was jam packed. I mean, really good ball played on both sides of the ball from both teams, right? Um,
Yeah.
I was impressed, especially offensively with both teams and what they were able to produce on the field. Oregon technically, I mean, they outgained Washington by 141 yards.
Yeah.
And it showed on the field. I mean, I felt
Especially
like
in the second half, it showed.
it definitely showed, and Bo Nix was outstanding. 33 of 44 for 337 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. That's really good. I mean, that's what we've come to expect from Bo Nix. But I thought that Washington came up on fourth down on 3 different occasions and made some good stops. You can question whether or not they should have gone for it on fourth downs, particularly heading into the half. I think that's the main one that people want to circle and say, hey, that's the one that you can't really do there. It was a little bit too aggressive. You get the ball back in the second half to start. Why are we going for it? And letting time expire. Maybe I don't know if Dan
Yeah.
Lanning was thinking, hey, if we get a pass off real quick, we can still kick the ball. And maybe Bo Nix took a little bit too much time. He did have to kind of roll to his right on that pass that was incomplete. But I think in hindsight, if you look back and say, okay, hey, we make that kick and we're in overtime, and they
Yeah.
really had a pretty good bit of momentum to be on the road, in Seattle. They could have snuck away with that win, but it is what it is. I think that Dan Lanning is a young coach. He's an aggressive coach, which you love to see. I mean, why not give your team the confidence and say, "Hey, I'm betting on you guys to get it done." And it just didn't happen. I think if you did those same 3 plays an extra 3 more times, they probably get them. It's probably like a 50-50 type situation. So
Yeah.
it's one of those things. But I do think that he was a little bit over ambitious and a little bit over aggressive. And I'm just glad it didn't cost them in a postseason type game. Maybe he
Yeah.
learns now. They get a chance to face him again in the Big 12, or excuse me, in the Pac-12 championship, and maybe he's able to take it away because I do feel like Oregon, really played a better game, all in all, considering it was on the road in what was, from my understanding, a really hostile and outstanding environment in Seattle. I thought that they played really stinking well, and it was a super clean game, really fun to watch, and I don't think that it was anything that either of us, didn't expect from these 2 teams.
Yeah. Well, here's my take on Dan Lanning. Okay. I didn't as much, I guess, mind the one in the first half. I guess. Look, here's the deal. The whole time he's being way too aggressive, and I'm not sure what was to gain by some of these moves that he was making. And I do commend Dan Lanning for trying to be aggressive because all the time, I mean, you could be like Jimbo Fisher and have a bunch of awesome players and just never try to do any damn thing on offense. It seems like, anything risky for sure. So Dan Lanning, I commend him for wanting to, like you said, put the faith in his players and in his defense or whatever. But there's a difference between putting your faith in them and leaving them out to dry and setting them up for failure. Okay. I get it. Everybody wants to play these numbers, and it's like the Moneyball era of every damn sport that we play. So I get it. I get that aspect of it. But at the end of the game there, you had talked on how Oregon was they really were winning they really were winning this game the whole second half. I mean, they were whooping them pretty good, and the defense was getting 3-and-outs. And so with the lead in that situation, why in the world would you go for it on fourth down around midfield and give this offense a spark when they haven't had it the whole second half? I don't understand that line of thinking. If you're going to beat us, and I say us in the metaphorical sense of being in Oregon shoes, if you're going to beat us, let's flip this field and let's see you go. I mean, what's the worst? They get it into the end zone and it's 80 yards to go, or better, you get it inside the 10 and it's 90 or 98 yards to go. I want to see that offense that was wore out and had not had a spark in the second half the whole game. And I want to see them go the length of the field and score that touchdown. And that's the faith I want to put in my defense right there. That
Yeah.
you can't go the length of the field here because you haven't been doing it. But it gave Washington a spark when they got that stop. It changed the momentum of the game. And Dan Lanning, like you said, I'm glad because I like Dan Lanning, and I think he's got a good thing going in Oregon. He's an ex-Georgia guy. I want to see Dan Lanning be successful. It's in my best interest that Oregon is good. But when they go to the Big Ten next year, they're going to have to do better than that. You've got to play field position. You can't be running this risky stuff. It's a different situation for them next year, and hopefully he does learn from this. And I think that he will. But we as commentators after the fact have the benefit of knowing what happened, okay? And we know that it didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't sit here and pretend like I'm for something that I already know that didn't work. Whenever he was doing it, I was screaming at the TV, "What are you doing? Why are you doing this? You have the lead."
Yeah.
So naturally, whenever it's all said and done, I'm not super pleased with it. So what it is. I got a feeling these teams could meet again, but man, they are in a tough conference over there that has got several teams that could beat each other any given Saturday, and they're all getting into that schedule right now, and I'm sure we'll touch on that later in the week because I'm sure we'll have some good Pac-12 matchups, in-conference matchups for the Pac-12 coming up. But all in all, I mean, what an entertaining game. It just totally delivered. Washington, that whole scene was just amazing. The whole purple rain thing at the end of the game, that's cool as hell. And Michael Penix is such a great story. So I'm super happy for him, man. That's really what college football is all about. And us college football fans, you're not getting any of that stuff on Sunday. You ain't getting none of that stuff on Sunday. You know why they call it the No Fun League? They don't have none of that stuff going on, man. There ain't nobody storming the field. There ain't nobody crying at the end of a regular season game because they won by 3. It ain't happening. There ain't passion like there is in this sport. This sport is the best on earth, and I'm completely sold on that. And this weekend was a reinforcement to my thought process on that. And this game was everything that college football is supposed to be. Let's dive into some of these other ones. Which one should we go to, Mason? I think I want to talk on the Colorado game for a minute.
Yeah, we can do
this
that.
This game was on, and we
Friday
didn't even break
game.
this game down. So this when there was, it was a game against Stanford. It's kind of like a rule for our show that if Stanford is involved, we're not going to break it down. It's not really spoken about or written anywhere, but we just kind of both understood it. And but my goodness, I want to thank Coach Prime for giving me a reason to talk about this game, I guess. Feel bad for some of the guys, I guess, but Colorado, man, they've been cruising for a bruising, and I think they collected a pop knot in the second half of this one. What did you get a chance to check this one out?
Well, like most people, I saw it was 29-0 at halftime, and I said, well, that's about the end of this, and I cut it off.
Such a late game.
I was like, man, Stanford, and I thought Colorado did what I kind of expected them to do, in the first half. I thought, this is that I honestly I was thinking like, man, I should have taken Colorado to cover their point spread, which I think they were like, I want to say they were like 4 or 7 point favorites or something like that. So, I was thinking like, man, I'm kind of an idiot for not taking them. And, and lo and behold, Stanford comes back, and it was a hard fought game. It was sloppy in that second half. for Colorado. And that's kind of what it took for Stanford to come back in down 29. You got to have some balls bounce your way. And that's really what happened. You saw Travis Hunter came back and, played pretty well, had 140 yards receiving. I'd say that's a pretty good day there.
He was good on offense.
Yeah. And kind of got Moss there at the end, and plays like that happen. He was in a good position, probably just got a little bit turned around in a weird way, but he's still one. I mean, he's one of the best players in college football, but you're going to give up a play like that every once in a while, especially a guy his size, being, of a smaller build, but you'd like to see him turn around and make a play on that ball because he was in position, to go up and get that one. So, but yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate for Colorado. I understand. Look, and you can't overreact to this, right? If you're a fan of college football, then you should know that Colorado has already exceeded expectations for what they were supposed to be this year. Okay. Now, going into this season, you would circle Colorado and Stanford and say that should be a good game. That's one that Colorado can win, but I don't know if they'll be favored at that point yet. It kind of depends on what they put on the field. This was a 3.5. Vegas had Colorado at a 3.5 point win total before the season started. So, the fact that they're sitting here at 4-3 is a really awesome testament to what, Deion has been able to do. That being said, you can't lose when you're down 29 points. Like, that's not good coaching. It's just not. You can't blame it on the players. Well, that's not good coaching. So
that's exactly what
it's kind of both sides of it here in a way. Like, yeah, Colorado's done well. They did well up until the third quarter started, in this game. And they let them come back in, and that, you got to circle that as a defensive coach, especially, and say, what can we do to prevent this from happening again? Because, if they want to take the next step, and, there's still a possibility that they go bowling this year, but the rest of their schedule is pretty tough. It's going to be tough for them to find 2 more wins. Yeah. But, to build on next year and being, a contender in the Big 12 next year, they've got to make some serious adjustments. And I don't know. I was feeling pretty good about it until you see these really egregious coaching errors, and now I'm a little concerned.
Well, all right. I'm gonna tell you this. I think you're letting Travis Hunter off a little bit easy for this performance because I watched the majority of this game, and it wasn't just the last play.
Yeah,
Travis Hunter got beat 4 times that I can recount, and he flat out missed 2 tackles. Okay. And he really started having a bad game after he got lit up on a play. And look, I like Travis Hunter, and I agree with you. He's one of the most talented guys in college football right now, and there's no denying that. But he is small. He's a little guy. He's got to gain weight. If you're going to play big-time defense and you're going to tackle some of the guys that he's going to have to tackle, there's absolutely no way in hell he's going to be able to do it. And he is so twitchy. I think maybe he is an offensive player. I think maybe he's a wide receiver. And that's kind of what I'm seeing from him right now. I don't see him developing. And I know he's just coming back off of an injury, and I totally get that. But with all that being said, I think we're letting them off easy there. So Stanford wide receiver Alec Ayomanar. Look, I don't know how to pronounce his name because nobody's ever said his name to me before I saw it this past Friday, and I'm gonna tell you why right now. I'm gonna tell you why right now. So here's the rest of his stats from earlier this year. Okay, he had 1 catch against USC for 11 yards. He had 4 catches against Sacramento or something for 89 yards. He had 4 catches against Arizona for 41 yards. He had 3 catches against Oregon for 39 yards. And then he had 13 catches for 294 yards. And almost all of them were on Travis Hunter. So this isn't some kind of amazing player that was on everybody's radar. Okay. And maybe he just emerged all of a sudden or was all of a sudden featured. I don't know. But this is a bad Stanford team. And this was a horrible coaching loss and blunder by Coach Prime. This was a bad one. And we talked about this in the preseason. We both talked about this on this show. These new coaches, and we just saw it with Dan Lanning. We just talked about it. These new coaches are going to make mistakes. It's going to happen. It doesn't mean they're bad coaches, and it doesn't mean they're going to continue to make mistakes forever. But there was bad, egregious coaching malpractice in this game. So Colorado goes for it on 4th down twice while up double digits. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Punt the football. You have the lead. You're not you're not the freaking, Georgia Bulldogs or something. Even the Georgia Bulldogs wouldn't do something like that. This is just arrogance. Arrogance. They thought it was their birthright to roll that helmet out there and beat the Stanford Tree team, whatever they are. I thought they were the Cardinals, and then they kept saying Cardinal. And I'm like, okay, well, that must be the Tree. I don't even know. That's how much they suck. So this was a bad one, man. And Shador caps it off with the interception to lose it in double overtime. This was the opposite of clutch. This was a choke job.
Mm-hmm.
And Travis Hunter, I suspect, is getting more healthy. But there were things that I saw of him on defense that against a Stanford team now that just looked very suspect to me. And I know my eyes aren't lying. I stayed up and watched that one. And I don't think it's in everybody's best interest to show a bunch of highlights of Travis Hunter not playing well. I don't think those are the plays that you're going to see replayed. Everybody's riding the Colorado wave. So I don't think you're going to see anybody kind of bucking on that. But anyway, something to watch. I want to continue to watch that situation because I haven't seen him develop as a defender this year. And I want to know if Colorado is going to be a place that people develop, or is it just a stop before their career ends in college? Let's see here. What game you want to go to? You got one in mind? You want to talk USC Notre Dame?
Yeah, we can go there. We can start with that.
All right.
Yeah, go for it.
Did you watch this one? Did you get a chance? Okay.
I did. So this is one, later at night. And we did meet for a minute there Saturday night, and I told you, man, I was watching this game, and watching that first half, and I'm like, it's kind of a boring game. I'm going to change it. And then I was like, wait a second, this is Notre Dame and USC, and I'm watching this game, and I'm like, where is the excitement at? I thought that USC was this great offense, and they're out here laying an egg once again. It was the third week in a row where their offense got off to a slow start, and they never really got going, not like I would expect. So, and then, on the other side of the ball, you've got Notre Dame playing, pretty good defense, I guess. It's hard to tell now with USC, if they're actually a good offense or not. But, but they did some really good things on offense as well, scored 48 points. But to me, the tail of the game was SC and how bad they were. We knew that they were a bad defense. Let's be honest. But the offense is what, was really so surprising, and how bad that they played and had 5 turnovers. That's really how Notre Dame was able to amass 48 points, was from getting the ball back 5 different times.
It sure as hell wasn't on offense, was it?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. And credit Notre Dame's defense. They went up and got some of those balls. But we knew that they had a really good secondary. I was interested to see how that secondary would match up against USC's receivers, and they've got some damn good ones. And I'd say that they passed the eye test.
Yeah. The pass rush has helped them so much too, man. I mean, there wasn't that much time that they had to guard, and they did such a good job at making Caleb Williams uncomfortable in the pocket. He was constantly taking his eyes off of receivers and down to the line and making sure he wasn't about to get murdered. So I thought that they were all in his head, man. I mean, and again, look, and I like Caleb Williams. I love watching him play football, but some of his mannerisms on the sidelines and stuff, maybe it's just like a nervous tick or something. I don't know. But I mean, early on in the game, before I think he still had faith, like, okay, we can still come back. We can still come back. He's on the sideline, he's mouthing the words to songs,
Yeah.
Bobbing his head and stuff. It's like, no, dude, this is actually happening right now. And it wasn't just him getting beat; it was everybody getting beat. And look, Notre Dame's defense is for real. I want to talk about the winner of this game. The offense didn't do very, very good against this USC defense, and USC. I actually thought along the defensive line, I thought that that's probably about the best they've played this year. On defense. I thought that they played really well. So with all that being said, I'm kind of taken away from that. Like, all right, Notre Dame's offense is lacking. There's no doubt about that. I really like Audric Estime, but there's like 3 like wide receiver 2s and 3s on other really good offenses. You know what I mean? Like, there is no wide receiver on this Notre Dame team that any team is just like, man, I would love to have that guy, as my one. Definitely something lacking, and they're missing a playmaker tight end that we're so accustomed to seeing at Notre Dame. So interesting year for Sam Hartman to come over, and I wish we could have seen what he could have done with some more talent around him. But for now, this is a good rushing offense and a really, really good defense. And Notre Dame's got they got a couple of tough games left on their schedule, I think. But with 2 losses, they're pretty much doomed. But hey, you know what? Marcus Freeman got this team up off the deck. That's what we talked about last week. He did a good job of that last year, and there was no give up in this team whatsoever, man. And they fought right through. So for betting purposes, we can continue to count on Notre Dame to bring their best effort, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned their schedule. They've got to go to they've got Pitt coming to them. They've got a bye week this week. Finally, they finally just have to just be thankful to take a breath after
the Pitt season enders are coming.
That's right, though. Yeah. So after the past 4 weeks, they had Ohio State loss, Duke close win, Louisville loss, and then USC, which we know what happened there. They annihilated USC, but that should have been a good game. And now they get a bye week, so they're finally taking a breath. And then you've got Pitt, coming to you, and we saw what Pitt just did to Louisville, the team that beat Notre Dame. So it's interesting. And then they've got Clemson at Clemson, which is still a very gettable team for them. And I mean that both ways. This game could go either way, in my opinion.
That's going to be a low scoring one, man.
It is. I think the over under is probably going to be in the low 40s, honestly.
And I might still bet under. So
yeah. I could see it being in the teens, a 13-17 game or something.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, then they've got Wake Forest and Stanford. So it's still a very manageable schedule. I think they could win out and make a New Year's Six bowl, and I'd be fine with that. I think they're a really good defensive team. They're just 3 yards in a cloud of dust, on offense. It seems like at least they should be. But then this past week, I think Hartman ended up with like 126 yards in the year. No receiver had more than 2 receptions for Notre Dame, which goes to your point that they don't really have a true go-to guy. And that's kind of just what they're missing right now.
Mhm.
They've got a really good offensive line, and really on offense, that's about all they're missing are playmakers at wide receiver in the skill positions, and outside of that, they'd probably be, if they had that, they'd probably still be fighting for the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's transition over to the Miami at North Carolina game. So this one right here was honestly not really that close of a game. Honestly, even as
Yeah,
close as the score indicated, North Carolina officially wins 41-31. But really, this was an ass kicking, man.
yeah,
I First of all, I was really impressed with North Carolina's ability to run the ball. I didn't really count on them to be able to run it to the effect of 235 yards on the ground. That is very impressive, especially against a Miami defense that has been really good against the run this year. So, I mean, flat out, they were one of the best, and boom, they give up 230 yards. A lot of it to Hamilton, but the feel good story of this game was definitely Devontae Walker and his 3 touchdowns, and what I think is probably going to be his coming out party. Him and Drake May have got chemistry already. You can tell these guys have been getting reps together, just not in a game. Um, North Carolina, if you would have told me that they could run the ball for 5.5 per rush before this game, I could have told you the future and could have told you that they were going to take care of business here and cover no problem. Um, North Carolina, even though they get 4 turnovers here, I mean, Miami turned the ball over 4 times, so that can't be ignored. But somebody has to be there to get those turnovers, right? And North Carolina's defense is opportunistic, and it's bend don't break style. But I think it's much more serviceable than last year. I think it can be mildly trusted in some situations, and this offense is really good, especially whenever you add Tez to it. So everything's in front of North Carolina here. I Can I be honest with you? I'm going to go out on a limb. I want to go ahead and get out ahead of this. I think North Carolina is better than Florida State, Mason.
yeah. And I mentioned it last week. I don't think that Florida State is that good. We've got a top 25 coming out later today, and you'll see kind of where we have them. But I just don't. When you look at their wins, right, against Clemson, that doesn't look like a great win anymore. Right at the time, it was a huge win because it's been the game that's decided the ACC for a while. But it doesn't look like that big of a win anymore. And that was a close game that really Clemson should have won, right? Outside of a couple of turnovers, they should have won that.
Well, and
Against
it's
LSU,
all down to Maffa not picking up that block. I
right,
mean, literally, they missed one block, and it lost him that game.
right. And against LSU, I think if you go back and play LSU right now, LSU probably wins that game because they're cooking on offense right now, much more so than Florida State is. So and then they almost lost a game to Boston College, and let Virginia Tech kind of come back and play in that game. And so I'm looking at Florida State, and I don't see them as a top 5 game or a top 5 team. I don't see them in the playoffs picture. Later on, so we won't get to see Florida State against North Carolina unless they play in the ACC championship. I think that they probably will, but I could also see Florida State dropping another game at some point. So we'll have to kind of keep our eyes on that. Going back to this game, Miami and North Carolina. This game went how I kind of envisioned it, right? I told you last week that I thought that North Carolina found some things out on offense last week, and that's kind of what we've been waiting on. We've been waiting to see North Carolina, Drake May start to cook, and I didn't know if Tez Walker was going to be a factor yet. I didn't know what kind of chemistry, like you alluded to, I didn't know what kind of chemistry he had with Drake May, given that he hasn't been, but we knew he'd been practicing. And I think that those reps showed, in this game, and he got open. He made some guys miss. He ran some good routes. They got him the ball with a couple of handoffs. You can
Yeah.
tell that he's a big part of their offensive game plan. At least he was for this
Mm-hmm.
game. They circled this game and said, "Hey, we got some matchups we'd like to exploit." With him, I was a little surprised at how sort of bad the Miami backfield, the DBs played. I was a little bit surprised by that, but also it's tough to say because hey, had they not turned the ball over 4 times, Miami's still in this game. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure. So it's kind of one of those things, but that's part of the game. You can't turn the ball over.
Well, and
And
it wasn't
win.
it wasn't a situation where Miami had a bunch more yards or something. I mean, they had 5 or 6 more first downs, but that first downs are definitely not always an indicator of who's going to win the game. So it's not like it was lopsided and they turned the ball over 4 times and North Carolina had 300 total yards. I mean, they both had about 500 yards.
Yeah.
So I just that was a really good win for North Carolina, and I don't know when the last time they started off. What are they, 7-0 or 6-0? I can't remember, but I can't remember the last time they've. Okay, they've already had their bye, so they're 6-0. I can't recall the last time that North Carolina was 6-0. To be honest with you, and their schedule, I think is decent. The last 3 games here. I know they've got NC State at the end of the year. So the last 3 games are going to paint the picture for them. Who do they got?
So coming up, they've got Virginia, Georgia Tech, Campbell, Duke, Clemson, and then NC State. So definitely last 3 games. Got to find a way to win all 3 of those. I mean, they could definitely drop a game and still make it to the ACC championship, but you don't want that game to beat Duke, right? You got to beat Duke in this situation.
And Leonard's going to be back by then.
Yep, he'll definitely be back. I hope he's back this week.
Right.
But we'll break that down tomorrow. But yeah, so manageable schedule for North Carolina. I really like that. Unlike USC, UNC, who has one of the best players in the game at quarterback, and Drake May is still in the picture, and he may still be able to kind of show us on the national stage in the playoffs what he's capable of, because that's what we really want as fans, is to see the best players in our sport play in the biggest games, and we're not going to get to see that with USC. But
well, you talk about Heisman moments. This was one of them. This guy plays great every week, but what I thought was going to hold Drake May back from being a finalist for the Heisman was going to be his team. You can't go 8-4 and win the Heisman. That doesn't happen a whole lot. So I think Lamar Jackson had about the worst record I can remember in college and still win the Heisman. You've got to win at least 10 games usually to be considered. And North Carolina, I think, is well on their way to winning at least 10 games. But whenever they match up with Florida State, I think it's going to be a matchup that's going to be in favor of North Carolina. But we've got plenty of time to watch, and things can definitely change. So we will definitely keep an eye on it, as we do every single weekend, because I sit at my house on Saturdays and watch like 14 hours of football. So I will see it. If it happens, I'll know. Where do you want to go? Let's go to the you want to talk Texas A&M at Tennessee, or do you want to talk? What turd pile do you want to talk about? We could talk about the Aggies. We could talk about the Vols. Those are a couple turd piles.
Let's go
Arkansas. Those are a couple turds.
Let's go with A&M and Tennessee. Not a whole lot of offense in the SEC these days, it seems.
Yeah.
And this was one of those games. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever, man. I mean, it's Jimbo Fisher needs to go ahead. They need to go dig up all their money out of the desert or wherever they say they got $70-something million. I don't really care, but just get rid of the dude already. You already know that you're going to get rid of him. So just be done with it. Let's move on. I want to figure out what Texas A&M is going to do after Jimbo Fisher, because I know it's coming. It's just a matter of when, dude. It's not if, it's when. So they're already rumbling about it, and I mean, tell a group of people from Texas that they don't have enough money to do something and see what happens.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a conglomerate that's worth millions upon millions of dollars, and they'll figure it out. So, here's kind of my thoughts on the game here. I said before the game started that this would be the best offensive line that Texas A&M had seen all year. I said that Tennessee was really good on third down. Tennessee's off a bye week. It's at night. And I actually thought that Tennessee would be able to pass it a little bit more, but they weren't able to do so. But by God, Tennessee was able to run the football. And the rule still applies, Mason. We started this rule, folks, I did a few weeks ago. And I've been going by it, and it seems to really work for Tennessee. If Tennessee's going to win the game, they got to go buck 75 on the ground or more.
Yeah.
If they're below that, they're going to have a really hard time scoring enough points to win. And they already struggled to find enough points to win this game. I can't even remember what the final was, 20-13.
That's right.
So, look, Tennessee is a run team, everybody, okay? They ran it last year, but they were like big play over the top. They're trying to hit a big play every once in a while, but it's off play action these days, okay? This is a run team. And it is alarming the snail's pace at which Joe Milton has developed, or lack thereof. He's not developed. He is not a polished quarterback. This is the best we're going to get from him, and he's going to be gone. He's not, dude, if somebody drafts him, I'm going to pull all my hair out, because there ain't no damn way this guy is good enough to be at the next level of football, because he can't play at this level, man. He is just not good. He's just flat out not good. But for some reason, I felt last week that I thought Tennessee would be able to move this Texas A&M defense, and they did, to the tune of over 200 yards. And that was one of my plays, was Tennessee -3. And dude in the comments that told me that was crazy, you're crazy, man. You're crazy. What do you think, Mason?
I thought that the game went about like I expected. I'm kind of on the opposite side, where I knew that Joe Milton wasn't going to be able to pass the ball for anything, and he didn't. Now the first half he made some good third down throws.
I thought maybe he'd make a deep shot.
Yeah,
no, just one.
He wasn't even close. He really wasn't. I mean, I went back and watched the video of all of Joe Milton's plays in that game. Credit to whoever. I wish I remembered who it was on YouTube, but anyways, I went and watched his play, and it was really bad. It was really, really bad, and that's what I expected. But I also, so we're kind of opposite in that way. Whereas I kind of bet on Texas A&M to stop the run better than they did. They weren't able to do that. But that's really not what cost them this game. What cost them this game was special teams, because they had one punt return down to the 1 yard line that ended up being a touchdown. And then they had another one for a touchdown. So 14 points, you could say, came from those special teams, and that's really what won them the game. Otherwise, it's 13-6. And Texas A&M had that bend but don't break defense sort of style that they've had. But I'll tell you, one other thing that really surprised me was Tennessee's defense. I knew that they were good. I knew that they were a top 30 type defense. I'm pretty sure, Mark, overall, this is like a top 15 type defense. They've made a tremendous jump from last season, and I was really impressed. They had the benefit of playing Texas A&M with their backup quarterback Max Johnson. It's not a very threatening offense. So, I want to kind of premise that, but still, they were able to stop their rushing attack. They had 54 yards rushing the ball. And that's pretty much what Texas A&M wants to do. It just wasn't working for them. And Max Johnson was less than 50% passing. They really shut Texas A&M down on defense, and that was really impressive to me, and that's why I do give Tennessee a little bit of credit here because their defense kept them in this game, and I think that their special teams won them this game.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, Texas A&M had more turnovers than Tennessee. Max Johnson doesn't know what the F he's doing. This offense has got him befuddled at this point. And Tennessee, yet again, is a one-trick pony. But it's the opposite of what they were last year. All they can do is run the ball. Joe Milton is god-awful. I heard somebody tell me last week that they were worried about Tennessee beating Georgia. And I'm just going to be honest with you. If Tennessee plays anything like they played in this game, there is no chance in hell they will beat Georgia. There's a 0% chance. You're not going to beat, I don't think, Alabama or Georgia playing that way. I don't think. But you're going to have to be able to score. You're going to have to be able to score at whenever it's all said and done. But look, this was a great win for Tennessee. Needed this one. They were very excited about it. All Tennessee fans were like freaking pumped up like they won the Super Bowl. So, hey, this was a big one. And they wanted it and had to have it, honestly, because you've got some matchups looming with Alabama this week coming up. It's the third Saturday in October Classic. And you've got Georgia coming up in November. So as it sits right now, I'm taking Alabama and Georgia in both of those games. But we'll see how things develop. You got anything else on that one?
No, I'd like to just kind of get through these last few games that we got and see what else kind of stood out to you from the rest of Week 7.
Yeah. Well, at this point, I'm gonna pull up some of these scores here.
What about so the other ranked matchup we hadn't talked about yet was UCLA and Oregon State. Yeah,
that's what I was about to talk about. Yep.
I'll go ahead and lead us off with this one. I mean, I thought that UCLA had an outstanding game plan. I thought that they really put themselves from a coaching perspective in an opportunity to win this game against Oregon State. Oregon State's a better football team than UCLA right now because UCLA is a little bit young. They have an outstanding defensive line. It's almost a shame, really, that UCLA doesn't have a little bit more experience with Dante Moore, a quarterback, because if they did, this is a complete team for UCLA. But going into this game, I was really impressed with Dante Moore. He just kind of turned the ball over a little bit too much, right? He had 3 interceptions. He was 14 of 33 with 165 yards and 1 touchdown. That's just not getting it done. I think that he's kind of got to go through these learning curves now as a freshman because, why not at this point? You can't really go back. I saw that they brought in Colin Schlee a couple of times to run the ball. He had 1 pass, and he was effective as a runner. 80 yards on 6 carries. Did some nice things, but I think that kind of takes a little bit of that pressure off of Dante Moore, but also, does it give him a little bit of doubt? I'm sure it does. So I'm kind of questioning where they're going to go as an offense, but I do still really like Moore overall. I wish he had protected the ball a little bit better in this game, and he really just made some freshman mistakes. But for Oregon State, look, this is a team that should be taken seriously out there in the Pac-12. They really kind of stood up and said, we know that UCLA is a good defense, but we're still going to run the football because that's what we do. And 133 yards, that's it's pretty good running the football. But they knew too that they were going to have to do it by air and the ball. And credit to DJU who passed for 266 yards, pretty good by his standards. And he averaged 11 yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. That's really getting it done. They played a very well balanced game and a complimentary game, and bowed up on defense as well whenever they needed stops to kind of make UCLA feel like they weren't in this game. And at the end of the day, they won by 2 scores, but it felt like a lot more than that by the time the game was over. The first half felt really competitive. I thought we were in for a really good game, and then they kind of just squeezed them there in that second half, and made it not so interesting towards the end. But I think Oregon State's a really good football program right now, and they're definitely moving up in my books.
One thing that really popped on screen to me with that game is the way that Oregon State was able to neutralize this very feisty front seven for UCLA. That offensive line for Oregon State, man, there's something else. Those guys are freaking huge, very, very, very large people movers. So I'm Oregon State is a pretty well balanced team as far as Pac-12 teams go, and going to be a tough out for anybody. I'm feeling DJU seems really comfortable with this team. I don't know. There's something about them. They seem to maybe be figuring some stuff out even more as the year goes on. Jonathan Smith has got to be an early candidate for Coach of the Year. And they finished the season off hot last year. Ended up, I don't know if everybody remembers, probably not, but they beat the ever living bejesus out of Florida at the end of the year last year, 30-3. It almost shut them out. And really, ever since those last 6 games of the year last year, man, they've just been on a roll. So Jonathan Smith, I think, is going to be somebody who should be considered for big time jobs because he's going to need somewhere to go anyway. So I don't know. I could see him taking a big time job somewhere after this season.
I could see that, and it's really going to come down to the last 2 games of the year for Oregon State, where they've got Washington coming to them, and then they've got to go to Oregon. So, that's going to define sort of where he ends up, I think, and where this team ends up by the end of the season. I mean,
I think they'll beat one of them. I bet you they beat one of them. Dude.
I wouldn't be surprised. I really wouldn't. In a rivalry game against Oregon, I could see it. They're only going to get better, I think. So this is a team that's kind of finding themselves now. And, they've got a bye week this week, and they've got Arizona, Colorado, and Stanford to get ready for those last 2 games. So, they've got some time to continue to figure things out, build up some confidence, and then, get ready to welcome the Huskies.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's kind of just fly through some of these. I got comments on a couple of these, and if you do, let me know. Kind of maybe just stop me. But we're gonna buzz through these. We want to try to keep this show about an hour, right, Mason?
That's right.
So let's kind of just buzz through these, and I'll kind of buzz through the top 25, and there's a couple that are outside of there that I want to maybe speak on as well. So UGA takes care of Vandy. UGA continues to turn the ball over, kind of an issue for Georgia, it seems like, at this point in the season. I thought Georgia played really well. I thought it was really pretty thorough beatdown, but they turned the ball over and gave up, spotted this Vandy team 14 points in this game. Georgia wins 37-20. Brock Bowers is injured in the game. Everybody has talked about that. We will see what happens. Georgia goes into a bye week, and they have the world's largest outdoor cocktail party the week after that. Don't expect or trust any information you get out of Athens over the next 2 weeks. They're gonna cover it up. They're gonna lie about it.
I did see. I don't know. This came out a couple of hours ago, or about an hour ago or so. But he is having surgery today. Brock Bowers. He is having surgery on the ankle. They did not tell us what it is. We're assuming, the media is kind of assuming that it's one of those tightrope type surgeries, and he'll be out for 3 to 6 weeks.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know what to expect. I mean, I hope that he's able to come back for Tennessee. I think that'd be a game where they'd like to have him back. But that's kind of the game that I circle and say, like, that's the next one that Georgia would probably want him back by, at least to be a decoy on the field. And then, get him a few more reps to kind of get back up to game speed for that SEC championship. But I would think that he'll be back by the SEC championship game at the absolute latest, if they're just playing it completely cautious.
Well, there you have it, folks. There you go. There's your Brock Bowers injury report for the nation. So Well, Georgia's going to be fine. I'm not. They don't have a big game to worry about. I don't think that it's going to affect them, but we'll see. If Georgia gets beat, it's not going to be because Brock Bowers ain't playing. I'm telling you that right now. It'll probably be because they're turning the ball over and they can't stop fumbling and throwing interceptions. Interceptions are going to happen, but the fumbles are absolutely ridiculous this year.
If there's any unit that Georgia could take a hit on, it's tight end. And there's not another Brock Bowers, don't get me wrong, but they have a lot of very talented guys at tight end. They
probably just won't go two tight ends very much. I mean,
or even one tight end. They can have. They've got really 5 excellent wide receivers that they can go to. Now they can go out there and roll 5 receivers out if they want and get open the playbook up a little bit. And maybe that helps them in some ways with some explosive plays.
Yeah, absolutely. So like we said, UGA takes care of Vandy 37-20. Michigan beats the ever-living bejesus out of Indiana 52-7. Michigan has not allowed anybody to do any damn thing this year. We're going to do our top 25, and that'll be released tomorrow. But I'll go ahead and spoil this one for you. I don't know what my Michigan ranking is going to be averaged with Mason's. I can't tell you that because I don't know that information yet, and I wouldn't anyway. But I've got Michigan ranked number 1 in my poll because there's just honestly not any reason not to. I think they're might be the best defense in the country this year too. Ohio State takes care of Purdue 41-7. That's a season high in points scored for Ohio State this year. So looking good going into the Penn State matchup coming up this week. Florida State takes care of Syracuse 41-3, no problem. Penn State takes care of UMass with less of a problem, 63-0. Arkansas at Alabama. I did want to kind of touch on this one. I thought this one was kind of interesting here. So Alabama jumps out early, right? Gets up 24-6, and then the comeback started. And the comeback was sparked by inability to really do anything on offense in the second half. Milroe was 2 different quarterbacks, first half and second half, had a terrible second half. Bama stopped running or either being able to run the ball or they stopped calling run plays. I don't know what the hell was going on, but couldn't do anything. And all of a sudden, Arkansas and I tell you what sparked it because I made a note right here. I've got pretty intense notes here. All right, I'm a note taker, but only about football. So it was 24-6. And Jalen Key, that plays for Alabama, he's a secondary player. It was 3rd down. They stopped Arkansas, but he stopped them with his face mask. Okay? Ever since that moment right there, sparked the comeback. And Arkansas was on their ass. Landon Jackson just totally tore up Alabama's O-line in the second half. I put a note right here. Bama O-line, really bad. No pass blocker. They're bad.
Yeah.
They can run block sometimes, but man, they can't pass block worth the ever living flip. And I think it feeds into the issue that Milroe's already got. He can't keep his eyes downfield. So there's just a lot of different things going on this Alabama offense. Nick Saban, I thought, was going to actually die on the sideline of this thing at the end of the game. I mean, dude was losing his mind. Couldn't believe just how stupid everyone was around him in that moment. Like he was madder than an old dude. I mean, and I love to see it. That was the most fiery I've seen him in a while. And he was just losing his mind. Alabama was just doing some really dumb stuff at the end of this game. They tried like hell to give Arkansas a chance. And they did. They gave Arkansas a chance, and Arkansas just couldn't capitalize on it. So kudos to Bama for getting the dub, but 24-21 Alabama wins. They win by a field goal at home.
Yeah, I think this just kind of further cemented the fact that Alabama's just really not that good anymore or this season. And you can go back to that Texas A&M game now, which, when I looked at that game, I said, I kind of liked what I saw from Texas A&M, and which led me to pick them to cover in the point spread against Tennessee. But now I'm looking at it like, man, Alabama's just so bad. Like, I didn't realize how bad it was. I thought they had figured some things out on offense and, had kind of found some sort of an identity and would be able to, really kind of take care of Arkansas. And that just wasn't the case. I mean, gosh, I wish for Sam Pittman's sake that he was able to pull this one out, but it was an interesting game down there at the last minute. I had to kind of flip back to that game and pay attention to it because it was getting kind of sticky there in T-Town, and I'm sure that those fans were not too happy about it.
Yeah.
What fans were left, because we know that they like to leave early, but
it seemed like look, this was the first time this year that I've watched an Alabama game and the defense was struggling. They were struggling in the second half, and it was just blown coverages, missed tackles, not being in the right place at the right time. There was some timing issue going on, and I don't know. It was hard to put your finger on, man. But it's the first time I've seen this defense kind of shoot themselves in the foot as this game came to a close, as the year went on, or as the game went on. Let's see here. Let's go through Louisville at Pitt. We can go ahead and talk about this stinker. So Louisville takes all their glitz, glam, and glory, and they just blow it in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh puts a stop to number 14 as the AP, Adam. Louisville's perfect start as the second half surge fuels a 38-21 upset. Yikes. Did you get a chance to watch this one? I didn't watch this one.
I didn't watch it. I didn't even go back and rewatch it.
Yeah.
This is one where, okay, I picked against Louisville, right? Against Notre Dame. And then I picked with Louisville against Pitt, and they let me down, and I was just like, man, you know what? They kind of were who I thought they were. And I think that they caught Notre Dame in a bad week, So, I think that they're still a pretty good team, but were they a top 20 team? Probably not. So, that's kind of my takeaway from the game. Also, I mean, credit Pitt, for kind of bouncing back in this season. They've had a pretty bad season since the West Virginia loss, and they're slowly like becoming a pretty competitive team. So that's kind of one to keep your eyes on.
Yeah. Well, it's just disheartening how this game kind of developed. I mean, Louisville was right there at halftime. Everything was okay, and the second half, man, it just slipped right through their fingers. And you're gonna have that if you're trying to go undefeated. It's tough to do. You're gonna get everybody's best shot, and Pat Narduzzi spoils a really, really good start for Louisville. But you know what? You never know what can happen if they can keep winning some games. Utah takes care of Cal 34-14. I didn't know that Utah knew how to score that high. So that was impressive. NC State at Duke hits on the under for me. Thank you very much. 4-3-1 last week. NC State at Duke 24-3. Duke ends up winning that one. So taking care of business without their quarterback. That's pretty impressive. And honestly, to score 24 on NC State without your starting quarterback, that is impressive. Another one of my plays that hit that everybody did not even understand. It did not make sense, Mason, why I picked this team. It did not make any sense. And that's why I picked them. Because I wanted to blow y'all's minds all over the side of this channel. Okay? And that's exactly what I did. I'm an evil scientist sometimes, and I really felt like one as this game developed. Arizona at Washington State. Arizona wins 44-6.
Yeah.
Oh, why didn't I take them on the money line?
That's what I'm saying.
Damn it. Damn it.
Terrible. Oh, I can't believe you didn't. I mean,
Well, I can't believe you'd let me not do it. I'm
Yeah.
going to blame you. I think this is your fault. That's what I'm going to go with. That's what I'm going to go with. That makes me feel
I
better.
did like the play. I didn't piggyback off of it because I had already piggybacked on one of them that didn't hit, and that was South Carolina and Florida. But I did like the play because I saw Arizona kind of coming around in a way, and they've been a pretty tough out, for a couple of teams. They finally had one kind of go their way.
Well, one thing that people didn't like about it, I think a lot of people were scared off from this pick, was that the backup quarterback was going to be playing for Arizona, Fafita, and he played his ass off. He balled. So Arizona takes care of Washington State. As I said last week, Washington State is a one-trick pony. They have been exposed now twice, and so now we know the truth. They've been exposed. Auburn at LSU. LSU puts a whooping on the other Tigers. This was Tiger on Tiger violence, 48-18. I'm not really going to go into that. I don't really care about that much. Kudos to LSU. They get the home night game win, whatever. Great. Kansas at Oklahoma State. Kansas takes another L with their backup quarterback. Oklahoma State looks like they're kind of finding themselves. Mizzou at Kentucky. Mizzou put it on Kentucky. This was another one of my picks, one of my winners. Mizzou was the perfect style to expose this Kentucky defense, and that's exactly what we talked about last week. Weren't you on Mizzou also?
I was. I almost picked them, but before the game, I said, I want to see how Missouri handles a running attack like Kentucky's because they hadn't faced it yet. So that's the only thing that gave me
it looked like
pause.
Kentucky was going to run away and hide with this thing at first.
I know. And Missouri, hey, credit them, man. They bowed up and kind of just played some good ball. I think that it's a little bit interesting that Brady Cook still seems to have issues after what he did. I think he tied a record for the most completions without an interception, and now he's had like 5 in the past 3 weeks or so. So, right. I mean, he's definitely trying to, he's regressing back to the median, here pretty quickly. But they find a way to get it done and, got their playmakers involved.
Yeah. And scored 38 points. That's pretty impressive. Kind of going through some of these. Iowa State gets the win over Cincinnati. Iowa State's kind of trending right now. That's the only reason I say that. It seems like they've kind of got a little wind in their sails all of a sudden. I don't know. So we'll keep an eye on them, just at least for betting purposes. Illinois takes care of Maryland on a last-second field goal. Maryland is world famous for crab cakes and starting off hot and dumping everyone's feelings on the curb with the trash. So that continues. Florida at South Carolina. Florida goes game-winning drive. Graham Mertz throws for like 400 yards. Graham Mertz for Heisman?
He's got better statistics than Jordan Travis to date, and somehow Jordan Travis is still in it. So
you heard it here and only here. No, Graham Mertz ain't winning diddly shit. South Carolina is a bad football team, man. They're not a good football team this year. And Shane Beamer came out in the post-game press conference and blamed everybody but himself.
Came out pointing
and the Shane Beamer routine is starting to wear a little thin.
First
starting to wear a little thin.
Now
man, could you imagine that being your
teammates?
Could you imagine that being your coach and him saying all that at the end of these games? My God, it's just embarrassing. But South Carolina was winning this game with just a few minutes left by 10 and allowed Florida to drive down the field and score. Graham Mertz, like I said, about 400 yards. You got to try really hard to not play defense to let Graham Mertz throw for 400 yards. Every one of his throws typically starts off -1 yard because he throws it behind the line. But Ricky Pearsall is definitely a good wide receiver. Very acrobatic, very athletic. And he comes down with the catch and has a really good game. I think 150 yards receiving, something like that. So good for the Florida Gators. They go into the bye week. Only ran the ball for less than 100 yards on South Carolina and got this dub. That honestly kind of goes against my thoughts what they were on Florida. So interesting. But like I said, South Carolina's not very good. Looking through some of these other ones, one of my losses for the week was the Iowa 15, Wisconsin 6. So I guess Iowa's just going to go ahead and win that side of the division, and they're just going to go 11-1. Is that what's going to happen? We're just all going to sit there, and we're just all going to sit here and let them dump on the table, and we all just got to kind of eat our food around it and look at their dump.
Once again, that Big Ten West is just the worst division in college football. I'm so glad that they're going away with divisions in pretty much every conference. So we can stop having that sort of argument, and we can get, Michigan and Ohio State, or Michigan versus Oregon next season for a Big Ten championship. So I'm just ready to be done with it, because I don't even like having to talk about, Iowa 11-1, didn't play anybody. You know what I mean?
11-1 Iowa. Hey,
yeah,
they're gonna go 11. This is, I want to put this out on the airwaves right now. So they're gonna go 11-1. Ferentz Jr. is not gonna get his allowance. Okay. Yep. They're both. I think they both just resigned. What if they both just resigned? Wouldn't that just be crazy? They're just mic drop 11-1. What's up?
Texas A&M starts calling.
Yeah, no doubt, dude. No doubt. I think the Ferentzes and Jimbo should team up.
Yeah,
and create the most boring football team we've ever seen. Yeah, so Iowa's got Minnesota, Northwestern, Rutgers, Illinois, Nebraska left. So we are living in a world, and you'll have to explain to your kids how we got into a world where Iowa goes 11-1 and averages like 18 points a game. You can all explain that to your kids on your own time and in your own way, because that is a moment between child and parent. Yeah, that's about all I see on these games, Mason, for the week. There was some other ones that were very interesting. The Colorado State Boise game that came on late was very interesting. All the good games came on early enough to where there was no super late games. It almost left me like I don't know what to do with my hands, for the rest of the night. There was really no late games, but that's about it for as far as what I saw. Did you have anything else on these?
That's all I got for this week. Hey, stay tuned in, because next week we've got a couple of really good games in Penn State, Ohio State. That's kind of the main course there, but also Tennessee and Alabama. I guess that's a good game. Not there won't be a whole lot of points scored. I'll tell you that much. But you know, I guess we could be watching the end of a dynasty. So from that sense, it's entertaining.
It's like watching a dying star fall out of the sky. You hate to see it, but you just can't look away. Look, we got tons of content coming out this week. We want you to be a part of that. We want you to be able to see it. Please subscribe to the channel. About 65% of the people that watch this stuff, 70%, are not subscribed for some reason. No, it doesn't cost you anything. It's absolutely free. We already paid YouTube their part. Okay, we took care of that for you. So it's free to you. It's free to you. So you can thank Mason and myself on your own time, or you could just subscribe, and we'll consider that as a thank you. So because we already appreciate you watching the show, and without viewers, there wouldn't be a show. So thanks for coming and chopping it up with us. This was your Week 7 reaction. We've got Week 8 predictions coming out. We've got our updated top 25 coming out tomorrow. Sieg said, thanks, Mason.
It's my pleasure.
And thanks, Mark. If you haven't, you comment, so you have to subscribe. So you already told us thank you, but now he's told us twice, and that does make me feel good. So I thank you very much, Siegs. I do appreciate that. Tons of content coming. Y'all come join us. Come chop it up, talk some college football later this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. Everybody have a great evening.
Thanks. Have a good day.